I'm Chia, the time traveler. Welcome to this second episode of Future from Fiction, also known as F3, while we explore sci-fi movies, books, or trends and compare them to innovations that they've inspired. And not just innovations, but concepts. Concepts that we could adapt, that would underpin every key aspects of our lives as we live and evolve as humans. Now, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take you on a journey through one of my favorite TV series. Now, it's going to be a journey through
space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Whoa, Star Trek, it started as a TV series and kaboom, it became so much more. It's a franchise with books, comics, premiums, toys, movies, even conventions with its own cult following. Now, I'm a Trekkie and I just finished watching Picard. Slightly different from the traditional story of Star Trek, this one explored the humanity of Picard, actually humanity in total. What does it mean to be human? And if he had the consciousness and memories of a person, if he felt and believed we were a person, and when in fact everything about us was programmed into our minds, our parents, where we lived, all our friends, they were all programmings into our mind. Imagine if we cared and loved, we could taste and try things. Everything felt real. We had opinions, the capacity to fall in love. But our bodies were synthetic. Our hearts, but a battery that needs repeated charging. And our minds and memories and feelings, programming that could be downloaded and re-uploaded into different bodies. Are we still real? This was the premise of Picard. So go watch it. I'm gonna try my best not to say any more than I've already said. I think I've spoiled it for you quite a bit. And this is an existential question I often discuss with my children, because who knows what we will be in the future. I think they need to be prepared, to be mingling with synths, with human consciousness. What shape and form would we take? Maybe we would be those synths, right? Should our loved ones be given the right to decide what happens to our consciousness if our mortal body were to break down or disintegrate? Should we be uploaded into a mainframe or into a synthetic body and go on living a life we didn't choose? Someone else decided we should be put into another body and that we should go on living? Now, I'm going to leave you thinking about that, but let's get started on our journey to the final frontier with the captains of my favorite starships, Enterprise, Voyager, and Discovery. Now, there's so many technologies, it was really hard for me to choose, right? Because there were so many new seasons and series over the years. But I picked some of the most sexy ones and some of the ones that I felt were necessary in this day and age that we could identify with. But let's start with my favorite, the warp drive. And J.J. Abrams does it so beautifully, where he's got that anamorphic lens effect, right? That completely makes me excited. Anyway, Captain Christopher Pike also referred to the warp drive as the hyperdrive. A warp drive is a theoretical superluminal spacecraft propulsion system. It's featured in a lot of science fiction work. The first time it was introduced was actually by John W. Campbell in his 1931 novel, Islands of Space. Yes, 1931. Whoa. I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? That we have amazing creative people who think of these ideas. Well, a spacecraft equipped with a warp drive could travel faster than light. That's the simple concept of the warp drive, traveling faster than light. It's not a jump drive now. Don't think it's not a drive that makes your ship appear in one space and then boom, you're in this other space. No, you can't instantaneously travel between 2 points. That happens in Star Trek, the Discovery, when they have the mycelial spore and the mycelial drive, right? That's quite amazing. But for this, in contrast to hyperspace, a spacecraft at warp velocity would continue to interact with objects in normal space as it's traveling. Now, a bit of physics for the geeks amongst us, right? Well, Einstein's theory of special relativity states that energy and mass are interchangeable, and the speed of light travel is impossible for material objects that, unlike photons, have a non-zero rest mass. Now, the problem of a material object going faster than light speed is that an infinite amount of kinetic energy would be required to travel at exactly the speed of light. But theoretically, this is solved by warping space to move an object instead of increasing the kinetic energy of the object to do so. Such a solution to the faster than light travel problem leads to two directly opposite approaches to light speed travel in science fiction. So in the movies, they do it two ways. In the first, as in the case of Star Trek, spaceships themselves are brought to light speed and beyond. In the second, space itself is made to come to the ship while the ship moves at a sub-light speed. Okay, so this kind of travel is still, boom, far-fetched out there for humans, right? We haven't cracked traveling or doing anything at the speed of light yet. The closest we've come is Elon Musk's Hyperloop, right? And even that, we're wondering how our bodies are going to be able to take such high-speed travel. But there are theories that scientists are exploring and hopefully soon experimenting with. So let's talk about some real-world theories. At the heart of some of the current thinking, which is called the hyperdrive, there was a concept that won the 2006 American Institution of Aeronautics and Astronautics Award for the best nuclear and future flight papers. The paper describes a concept that is baffling even to scientists, but the end result is expected to get us to Mars in about 3 hours. Now, in 2018, the US Defense Intelligence Agency made public a 2010 report that surveyed multiple different approaches to faster than light travel. Caltech professor Sean Carroll reviewed the report, and this is what he said. He said the theories were legitimate, theoretically, they did not represent something that's going to be connected to real life engineering anytime soon. Basically, great theoretically, we can't make it materialize as something physical yet. Not quite yet. Well, maybe with a little magical touch from Elon Musk and with the aid of his Neuralink, man's creativity and innovative thinking combined with the speed of machines could actually do the magic. And we'll be in Mars in no time. Yeah! Okay, now on to the next technology. Tractor beams. Tractor beams has gotten the Enterprise and its crew out of a lot of tight spots, right? Typically used to push and pull objects outside the ship, the tractor beam has been used to tow ships in need of help and even push ships away from danger. But unlike the warp drive, there's a lot of impressive progress made with tractor beams today. In 2006, MIT researchers had their version of the tractor beam, where they used the tractor beam of light to pick up, hold, and move around individual cells and other objects on the surface of a teeny tiny microchip. The technology was called an optical tweezer. The idea is to use light beams as tweezers to manipulate cells and tiny objects. And this idea has been around for 30 years, but the MIT researchers found a way to combine this powerful tool for moving, controlling, and measuring objects with the highly versatile world of microchip design and manufacturing. So basically, listen to this, they could build on tiny little microchips, move stuff, build stuff, reinvent stuff on tiny little microchips. Now, the most interesting one for me was by Professor David Creer of NYU. He talks about how an experiment he and his team conducted with optical tweezers went oh so wrong. He was bummed, but you know what? The error somehow replicated or created in him imageries from Star Trek's tractor beam. So boom, Star Trek had primed his mind for scientific possibilities. The result was a tractor beam that physically exists on an optical table, where he is several feet away from a person who's going to be controlling it with points and clicks, and it can pick up micrometer scale objects. Okay, so it's still far from ready to slurp up a spacecraft like Star Trek, right? But NASA is interested in its potential to gather up comet dust, ice crystals, and other particles in space. Space rocks, people. Imagine being able to grab space rocks without sending your astronauts out. Graham, meanwhile, is continuing in his research into beams that can haul things, although he has expanded his focus now. Sound travels slower than light, which means it packs 1,000,000 times more punch per watt. And that means being able to move bigger objects with more force. Okay, think of it like music, right? When you go to a club, what do you do? Do you feel the light show? Do you feel it? No, you don't. But what do you feel? You feel the bass, right? Feel the boom of the bass. Boom, 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 boom. So the idea is to develop new techniques of acoustic holography and imaging so that we can shape sound fields to take advantage of everything we've learned about light fields. He envisions devices that could assemble components to environmental samplings or handle dangerous materials at a distance. Now, on to the next technology. Tricorders. Now, on Star Trek, there are two types of tricorders. There's the medical tricorder, that's used to diagnose somebody's medical conditions. No blood tests, no x-rays, no genetic sequencing. Star Trek's doctors could just point their tricorder at the patient and seconds later work out if they've succumbed to a common flu or the KwaZulu 8 virus, right? The tricorder continues to fascinate because it magically solves some of the problems about medicine we still have today. It's problems like, it's taking too long, it's too expensive, it's uncertain. And right now we're in a COVID-19 space where it's not available. We don't have the technology to create the vaccines yet. Well, maybe we do, it just takes a long time. The tricorder is also used like Doctor Who's screwdriver in some of the Star Trek episodes to scan the environment, to scan beings and the air and elements around them to describe the chemical component or the biological makeup. Is this alien? 98% human. Or is it human, If you want a replica, the Wand Company has been making Star Trek working replicas for a lot of Star Trek technologies, including the phaser and the tricorder, designed to work just like the fantasy version imagineered in the 1960s, beat that. With some 21st century technology, it comes with a full LCD display information stored in the tricorder along with dynamic data gathered by its sensors and audio recording function, with a target retail price of US dollars 250. Not bad. Star Trek fans can now look forward to measuring the environment, scanning radio frequencies, what's happening on the police scanners, recording audio, impressing your friends, enjoying the fact that you'll own the most sophisticated prop replica ever designed and manufactured. And it's going to be out in the summer of 2021. There's a waiting list, so go online, check it out. But the first sign that a medical tricorder could be more than a sci-fi fantasy coincided with the emergence of the first serious smartphones and tablets. Back in 2007, MIT researchers used a Nokia 770 as the basis for a tricorder, displaying information from sensor networks, while a few years later a rash of medical peripherals released for the iPhone offered the hope that Apple's mobile could be turned into a real-life tricorder. I'm still hoping for that, okay? But in some ways, you can use your mobile device to test your heart rate and to keep track of your fitness goals, right? You've got all that on your iPhone. There are apps built into it even to help your child diagnose dyslexia from an early age. But really, how close are they to the tricorder? Well, Purdue University researchers created a handheld sensing system tasting food for dangerous bacterial contaminants, including salmonella. I wanted to show you a picture. They didn't have anything impressive, so forget it. Didn't look very futuristic either. But here's one. Xanadu released a device called the Scout in 2015. The Scout could measure a handful of vital signs: blood pressure, heart rate, blood oxygen saturation, and temperature, by being just held up to the patient's forehead. As you can see in the picture, it's not quite the tricorders, no touch technique, and it doesn't, and it doesn't have diagnostic capabilities, but it was arguably further towards such a device than any hardware before. So it raised funds on Indiegogo, up to 1.7 million, and several million dollars from investors, and the Scout eventually went on sale. However, the company had released it under the banner of a research device for investigational use. So this, and God only knows what other reason caused it to fail. Well, it didn't meet the FDA approval, so the research effectively came to an end and devices were bricked, leaving buyers angry. One of the biggest stimulants for building a tricorder came when chipmaker Qualcomm sponsored the tricorder X Prize of US $10 million for the creator of a real-life tricorder. The ask was to create a hardware that could diagnose a set of 13 medical conditions, including anemia, diabetes, as well as monitor a handful of vital signs. The prize, launched in 2011, was won by Basil Leaf Technologies with a device called Dexter, which you see on my left, with a range of specific medical peripherals, including a sensor for heart and lungs, an ECG monitor for measuring heart rate and rhythm, and a device for analyzing blood glucose and white cell counts, a sign of infection and inflammation when raised. By winning the prize, the inventors, a group of siblings actually, and others led by this Philadelphia-based emergency room physician Basil Harris, hence the name, received a $2.6 million grant to help take the Dexter from concept to commercialization. So it looks like we're not quite there yet. But surprisingly, in the weapons department, there's been a lot of progress. Next up, we're talking phaser guns. In Star Trek, it was a weapon of self-protection. They were scientists and Earth's ambassadors on a mission of discovery and building alliances and discovering new species, so they weren't a federation after conquest. Humans, so guns weren't for attacking, they were for protecting. Hence the phaser gun, and you mostly set it on stun. Now the phaser gun comes to us courtesy of Ionitron. Now looks really nasty, right? It's called they're calling it a directed energy weapon. According to the company's website, its device produces man-made lightning to disable people or vehicles that threaten our security. Basically, it's a short pulse laser that can be directed at a target with ferocious intensity. The company also notes that the gun is available in lethal and non-lethal versions. The phaser, developed by Raytheon, is a high-powered microwave radiation transmitter parked on the top of a 20-foot shipping container. Powered by a diesel generator, phaser can direct a brief jolt of microwave energy in the direction of incoming drones. The energy fries the control system, stopping their motors and causing drones to fall out of the air. A laser would need to shoot a drone, one single drone at a time in a swarm. Phaser knocks out the entire swarm in one shot. It's basically a souped-up version of an anti-drone technology, and to me it sounds a lot like what Nikola Tesla was talking about, wiping out entire enemy planes and electronic instrumentations over 200 miles away. Now, I'm not a big fan of warfare. I've always believed that heads of countries should have a bake-off rather than go to the battlefield. No head of country goes to the battlefield. They send their young men to fight and women to fight their wars. Anyway, at least the product of a bake-off can be used to feed the hungry rather than having to pick up innocent war victims and rebuild nations after a warfare. Not a big fan of war. Next up, one of my favorite types of technology. I wish I was born with it. Cloaking technology. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Boom! So you thought only Romulans had a cloaking device? Well, Purdue University researchers using nanotechnology have taken a step toward creating an optical cloaking device that would make objects invisible. The Purdue University engineers, following mathematical guidelines devised in 2006 by physicists in the UK, have created a theoretical design that uses an array of tiny needles radiating outward from a central spoke. So the design, now this is easy science to grasp, right? The design, which resembles a round hairbrush, would bend light around the object being cloaked. Background objects would be visible. So it basically bends light. So you see everything around it, but the object itself, surrounded by the cylindrical array of nano needles, becomes invisible. Now, I'm going to show you this really cool video. Are you ready for it? Now, the material has been in development for several years now, but the patent application by Hyperstealth, which has provided traditional camouflage for armies in Afghanistan, Chile, and Jordan, basically means it's a step closer to being mass manufactured for the world's militaries. And Harry Potter fans, your invisibility cloak might soon be a reality. Now I'm getting in line to get one. Next up is the hypospray. Okay, this is not really sexy, but we all know no medical kit in Star Trek is complete without a hypospray. Not many people enjoy getting a flu shot, and in Star Trek, inoculating patients, basically, if you watch the original Star Trek, Leonard Bones McCoy, the doctor, the ship's doctor, was jabbing someone on every single episode. Now, what was this fascinating contraption? Well, it actually exists in real life. It's called a hypospray. Hypospray is a form of hypodermic injection of medication. A hypospray injection is forced under the skin with high air pressure. So the air pressure shoots the liquid vaccine deep enough into the skin. It needs no needle at all. Now, there is a real-world application, and it is known as a jet injector. Jet injectors have been used for many years. In fact, the technology predates Star Trek. So this time, the medical community thought of it before Star Trek. Jet injectors were originally designed to be used in mass vaccination. Jet injecting is safer because no needles are there to pass along diseases, and it's faster administration because you don't need to swap out the needles, right? It's just, you can connect it to it works like an automotive paint gun. You know, you can connect it to a big vaccine tank, and you can inoculate a lot of people one by one, no changing of needles. Now, not very sexy, but because it is timely, I felt I had to mention it. Perhaps this could be what we use for COVID-19 vaccines, because we all know every single person in the world is going to need to be vaccinated once a vaccine is discovered. Now, this technology we have on hand. Captain Kirk used a handheld translator to chat with a cloud-like alien entity, the Companion. In the latest Star Trek seasons, the translator works at a neural level. So when a crew member visits an alien planet, both the crew member and the alien understand each other perfectly. No need for learning languages. In similar vein, devices that translate conversational dialogue in real time are emerging, spurred by advances in artificial intelligence and cloud computing. The Pilot Smart Earbuds, designed by New York City tech startups Waverly, is a great example. Still at pre-launch stage, the projected Bluetooth earbuds can handle 15 languages. I'm sorry, but Vulcan and Klingon are not one of them. Online data centers process the conversations as they happen, and translations are sent to both sides engaged in the dialogue, who hear one earbud apiece in real time. Now, with 5G coming into play, this could really speed up, and there won't be any lag. A first of its kind offline universal translator, and offline. This is offline, right? Pretty cool. So you don't need Wi-Fi or connectivity to use it. It's called Time Cattle M2. Available in Indiegogo. It's just $89 a pair. Using Wi-Fi or a cellular network to first download the translations, M2 can translate up to 40 languages, including 93 unique accents to bridge the gap between dialects. Time Kettle M2 supposedly ensures recognition accuracy is high, allowing you to converse effortlessly wherever you are. So this is great if you're a foreign exchange student and you're taking notes in a class and the professor's speaking in a foreign language in real time. It lets you translate and take notes without feeling, oh my God, I'm feeling left behind. What the hell is he talking about? So now we've come to the end of the show, and I know a lot of stuff might sound like the stuff of sci-fi, but hey, science is starting to become way stranger than fiction. And in the immortal words of Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Starship Enterprise, things are only impossible until they're not. So I hope you enjoyed this webisode. Do subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave your comments on which innovation resonated most with you, and share this video on social media. On the next episode, we are discussing altered carbon and the idea of innovation and immortality. So stay tuned, or should I say, live in peace and prosper.